Hello, Sherlock here with Elementary Airsoft, and today we'll be taking a look at assembly of the NPO AEG VSS. This came directly from NPO AEG themselves. I came from Russia. This is the current model as of October 2020. It took about a month to get here during the COVID times. But had some time on my hands, so I figured I'd shoot a video on assembly. It came to me disassembled. They said it was easier with customs and shipping and whatnot. Obviously, it can be a lot more compact box if it's in parts. I had absolutely zero problems with this because I have no problems assembling airsoft guns. But for other people, it may be something worth bearing in mind. So let's dive right into it. It's fairly simple. There's a couple bits that get a little bit fiddly. But first, I want to try adding a washer and a screw to the back of this quick change spring guide, basically to hold it in position to prevent it from wobbling around. So like currently it's slightly off skew. I think this is something that would be really great if they added pretty much on any gun that they can fit it in. On the VSK I did have a spare, was it retro arms? Screw for their quick change gearboxes, which is a bit lower profile than this, so we'll see. This is a M5 bolt with threads in there, so we'll see if this sticks out too much or not. It'll be close. But basically that'll keep the spring from wanting to wobble or whatever as the spring guide tilts up and down. But the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to put our inner barrel into the receiver, which is this giant block of stamped and welded steel, and that's pretty simple. There's just going to be a couple of notches here that you're going to make sure your hop-up unit here slides into, and the arms here slot into that, and that's going to go all the way forward. Shoot. Got one step ahead of myself. Just given the space here, we're going to need to thread our Dean's connector in before we slide the hop-up unit all the way forward. This needs to go through that hole. Ta-da! That is in place. We're going to slide you all the way forward. So that means that we have enough room to slide the gearbox in. This essentially will come and sit a bit further back once everything's in place. It's worth noting here, as you can see, the motor cage, I've already installed that. That shipped separately down in the grip. And it's a bit of a custom one because the grip is a bit more vertical, so it's a thinner, narrower profile one, and it's made out of steel. No real problems there with that construction or function as of yet. So here, there's going to be two weird little parts. One is sort of has these two teeth on the top side and one tooth on the bottom side that sits on the pin here. That becomes your safety. That's what engages this lever and will lock out your trigger from being pulled. The other one here, this is essentially your fire selector that goes in on this side through this hole right here, and that is what will engage and disengage your cutoff lever. So pull that wire through some. We're going to put you on, and now begins arguably one of the most fiddly bits. So once again, I'm being an intelligent person and doing this with this nice neodymium magnet that wants to grab onto everything that's steel. So the trick is there's an arm behind the safety lever here. I don't know if I can get it in shot. There's an arm just right here, and it needs to thread between the two notches on this, or in that notch on the safety arm. So that's where the great difficulty is, and there's kind of this block on the back. So I'm starting with it a bit further forward going to try and rock it, pull it back into that slot. So as it starts to come into the slot, I'm going to start pulling the lever down. Actually, that worked a lot smoother. So here, let's see if I can get a little bit of extra light. I don't entirely know. I'll go all the way in. This is really the key thing here. Is that this arm here is starting to go into that slot. And that's really the key positional piece that we're fighting with here. So once that's in, I should be able to just kind of push it down. And I can see already, yeah, that my screw is not going to work for me here. So I'm going to pull him out. I should have kept, the VSK has a little bit more room back there. So yeah, if you have like, and I probably will see if I can get my hands on another one, the Retro Arms QSC screw for their quick change spring guides. It's a really low profile flathead, but yeah, like, so when this is in place, you got about like 2 millimeters back there. That would be really great. Okay, so this is in place. Before going too much further, we're going to just check and make sure that our safety here works just by kind of holding things in place. That's fire. That's safe. And if I flick this, I see that's engaging this lever down here, which interacts with the cutoff, which is that other piece. So that's all good. So now we have one other weird piece here to screw in. And that's this guy. This guy took me a little bit to figure out where he went. Basically where this goes is it slots in under the outer frame, sits there, and then we have our Phillips screw here, which will hold the gearbox in place. I'm not going to fully tighten this, I'm just going to snug it up for now. And what the other side of this does, it basically keeps, it's a stop for the arm, so it doesn't go too high up, which is a nice little addition. And honestly, here from looking at it, Retro Arms, this is the screw for the bottom of the motor cage here to hold that on. If you made like an even wider pan head like this, that would perfectly fit and hold that spring guide so that the spring won't cause the guide to move up and down at all, which would be great. Okay, so now we have this in place. We're going to then take our barrel, and here you can see from the top, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see that we're not engaging in that golden nozzle there, so we're going to just push that back until it mates with the gearbox. Then we take the outer barrel, which is its own separate piece. We're going to take the outer barrel, slide it on. This is also, once again, very, very, simple solutions when obviously you're working in steel. And we're going to thread the outer barrel on. There's this separate, cylindrical nut that has 2 flats cut on it, so loosen him up. We're going to tighten the outer barrel down till that's just snug. So that's holding our hop-up unit tight against the gearbox, which is great. Now that that's snug, I'm also going to snug down this screw here. So now the gearbox is completely locked in there. There's no movement here, no wobble, which is great. So basically, we use this to push this against there, the outer barrel, and then to hold the outer barrel in place is this other outer nut. And I'm just going to use a crescent wrench. I don't know what the actual one is. It's probably something metric. I'm going to back off the outer barrel a bit so I'm not tightening that too tight. Just snug him down, because I don't want too much pressure going this way. And ta-da, there you have it. Your gearbox is in. Let's all in good siding. Take our hand guard, slide him over. It's going to sit there, and that guy will pop up. So that's held on there, and I'm actually going to put on, I did order both the VSS M stock because it looks really cool and it's tactical. It's also fairly heavy. But there's the wood one, and I go over more in detail about this as well as the plastic in the comparison video to the LCT, so we won't go into that too much, as well as I do talk about it quite a lot in the VSK video. So now we're going to just slide this carefully into the handguard here. And it's a fairly snug fit. Just making sure the body overlaps the stock. Just take a rubber mallet here. Just to make sure she's on there snug. So this is in part fit using just force, and then realistically the only thing actually holding it on is this screw that goes in the bottom, the motor grip screw. The rest of it's just a really tight fit, and there's some hooks that grab on the body. I can actually feel the gap in this moving a little bit here as I tighten that down. It's also nice because the motor cage here is steel, so that does add some rigidity and durability. So there, that is that on. Go ahead and put on our top dust cover. Just make sure the wires are all tucked in. Go. And the dust cover has sort of this nice little two-segmented, you push basically down the button and then you can push it in, which is kind of nice. I don't know if that's real to the real steel one, but there we go, safety's on. We'll put on our suppressor. Batteries are designed to go in here. You do have a little bit of room in the handguard if you were really creative with batteries or really cramped. There is pretty much no space up here at all, unless you're running like an HPA setup. You could probably fit a small FCU battery up there of some kind. So this is threaded on. It isn't like the quarter turn like the real steel or like its instruction manual said. I think I pointed that out in the NPO versus LCT comparison video, but once you get close to this button, you're going to want to depress it. That is what will ultimately lock this in place so it won't rotate once it's in position. And there we go. That's in. Toss in a mag. And if so inclined, we can put on this POSP scope made in Belarus, or Belarus. This is a real steel scope. Oh, there we go. Which sits honestly a bit high, which I was a little bit sad about, but. And that has a nice positive lock, not going anywhere. And there you have the NPO AEG VSS. So just a few quick summaries or a quick few impressions on build quality and stuff if you're just looking at the assembly video. Black phosphate finishes on all the metal. It's all stamped welded steel. It's very sturdy. Only a very, very slight amount of play left-right on the suppressor. No concerns about flexes or movements there in other areas. No wobble on the stocks or anything like that. Overall, a really well-made gun, and honestly, one of the lighter and better balanced ones. Granted, now I added on the VSS M stock and the scope, it's a bit heavier, but certainly not bad. So there you have it. How to assemble the NPO AEG VSS. It's really honestly quite simple. It's 2 bolts to attach the motor grip, 1 screw there, 1 screw here, and then you technically kind of have to screw in the outer barrel. That's the only part that's about a little bit weird. Construction, durability wise, it seems to be very promising. They're very strong and will have no issues lasting. And it's also interesting or nice to see sort of different approaches that aren't just straight copies or clones of, you know, the Tokumuri AK system. Yeah, it has the V3 gearbox, and yeah, it's still using an AK style hop-up, but the system for holding it in position and or bringing it back it's really interesting and really nice to see a clever, simple design there. Just using basically a simple screw system to push the barrel to hold it back and tight against the gearbox. The whole thing seats and fits together really nice and tight. I like that it's adjustable. So that, in my book, is really great as a person trying to reduce any places where you can introduce inaccuracy and that kind of stuff. So that's cool. And if you're interested in stuff on the gearbox, there's a separate video on that. I have a video comparing this to the VSS, or to the LCT VSS, and I also have one on the NPO AEG VSK if you're interested. So I think they'll probably be somewhere on my page if you look. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.